Good afternoon, board members. My name is Darcy Butler, and today I will be talking to you about the real estate statistics in Melbourne, Australia, and how we can turn those statistics into an advantage for the company to profit on. As you all know, Melbourne is one of the wealthiest cities in all of Australia, and the housing market is competitive to say the very least. You may be wondering to yourselves, but why Melbourne though? Well, Melbourne rivals Sydney's population closely, but foregoes all the trading that occurs within Sydney's docks and airports. This leaves the housing market to be more prevalent and valuable in Melbourne. So when looking at the Greater Melbourne area, you can see by the image on the left that the areas that are most costly slowly get pulled towards the city centre. The reasoning for this is access to the city centre and distance travel to get there. Therefore, it would be reasonable to place a higher price on properties closer to the middle of Melbourne. Something to keep in mind when gauging the sell/buy price. The upper right image shows you the regional areas that have made the most profit from home buyers, which would also stand to give you an accurate idea as to the areas that sell the most. When looking to sell these houses, a good thing to keep in mind is when selling houses, appealing to a targeted audience by gauging their wants and needs is an excellent way to not only gain attraction, but to also build your repertoire. As you can see in the bottom right image, the amount of rooms the house has is the biggest consideration for buyers, followed closely by having a secondary bedroom. Attempting to sell houses of this stature will be statistically more successful than those without. The most wealthy regions in order are presented to you in the top left corner, with the southern metropolitan area of Melbourne being the wealthiest. It's the so-called hotspot area for houses selling, with surrounding metropolitan areas also proving reasonable. In the bottom left corner is the selling method for these houses, with sales, sold prior, properties passed in, and more. But the largest profit was made from a property being sold in the southern metropolitan area, just to reiterate how successful that area is. Other notable methods include properties passed in and vendor bids. Taking a look at the statistics on the right-hand side, you can see the earliest years that these properties were built. It is important to understand that the property you are selling and or buying, as older houses will need much more maintenance and care than modern homes. If you take a look down the bottom, there was a single vendor-built house constructed in 1196. This is the only outlier in this data set. The remaining properties were built in the 1850s or later. Earlier during this presentation, I spoke about audience wants and needs and the distance between bought houses and the city centre. This proves to also be a strong contributing factor for buyers when they are considering a house. Having a car to get around the CBD of Melbourne is a must for so many people, especially those in the metropolitan area. As you can see by the data on the left, car spot relevance in the southern metropolitan area is once again the most popular, with surrounding metropolitan areas following behind. This data is accompanied by the horizontal bar chart on the left. These addresses are the furthest away from the CBD, but still within the greater Melbourne area. As you can see, multiple car spots are considered for each of these addresses before they were bought, with buyers looking for 2 or more car spots on average. To add some final statistics to this presentation, as you can see by the dotted map on the top half of the page, the best areas to sell are very clearly the metropolitan areas, specifically the southern metropolitan area. However, when looking to sell houses in this area, please remember the requirements and ideals of your audience. In the bottom left corner is the average sale point for all the dates sold in this data set. As you can see, the average selling price was just above 250 million. Just something to keep in mind when looking at valuing properties, depending on the location, area, and what your targeted audience is looking for. Finally, in the bottom right-hand corner is a comparison on the southern and northern metropolitan area. As stated multiple times throughout this presentation, that the southern metropolitan area is the best to sell to, but for those looking for more consistent results, I point you to the box and whisker plot for the northern metropolitan area. As you can see, there have been less properties sold, but the properties that did sell and had a higher low and a lower high than South Metro. The lower hinges are around the same, but the upper hinges indicate that North Metro has a more consistent higher selling point than South. My final advice is if you're a new board member looking to sell your first home, I highly recommend going with the Northern Metropolitan area in Melbourne, as it is a consistent and safe way to ensure profit. For our more experienced members, Southern Metropolitan Melbourne is a prime area waiting to be taken advantage of. Uh, all profits and proceedings will benefit yourself and this company. If there are any other questions, I shall address them shortly. Otherwise, thank you for your time and consideration. For the final 2 minutes, I will talk about my colors and stuff. So I chose to have a mainly green background and keep things mostly green in to sort of represent profit being the main sort of topic of this. Obviously, my targeted audience is board members looking to buy slash sell houses. So very, very experienced board members within the real estate industry. Specifically targeting Melbourne. I use different colors here and here to best represent the different statistics, being yellow for South, red for Northern Metropolitan, and these other colors to help separate each area that people were looking at. For the prices, it's the exact same thing, different gradients to represent the higher amounts down here. For the car spots, it's the same reasoning, different gradients to represent the different car amounts that we're looking for. And I tried to keep these colors mostly the same throughout the presentation to give a more unified idea of what it is I'm talking about. For my final statistics, I wanted to honestly, I didn't really want all these colors, but I did want to sort of point out the fact that the southern and metropolitan areas are just bombarded with houses that have been sold, and I believe you can see that within this map. For the average sale price, I wanted to keep it all green. Again, we're talking about profit and sales, sorry. And for the box and whisker plot, I had a very standard box and whisker plot just so you could see very clearly the houses that are being sold and in each area in which they have been sold in for in terms of price. And yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.